Before the sun had even touched the horizon, Daniel was already on his feet, beginning another long day. He moved through quiet office buildings with a mop in hand, delivered newspapers in the chilly morning air, and by noon, scrubbed dishes in the back of a busy diner. This was his life, a relentless cycle of labor, all for one reason: his daughter, Emily. She was his world, especially after her mother died when she was just a child. He had raised her alone, giving up every comfort so she could have a better future. That day, however, was special. It was Emily's birthday, and Daniel had saved every extra penny to buy her a small bouquet of colorful supermarket flowers. The stems were uneven, the wrapping simple, but his heart was full of love and pride. He waited across the street from her elite private school, knowing it wasn't a place where he belonged but hoping for just a smile, a hug, a moment with his daughter on her special day. The school bell rang. Students poured out, laughing, chatting, surrounded by polished cars and well-dressed parents. Emily walked out with her friends, wearing the uniform and confidence of someone who had worked hard to fit in. Then she saw him, standing in his janitor's clothes, holding the flowers, smiling just for her. In that instant, fear and shame flickered across her face. She quickly turned away, pretending not to see him. Daniel lowered the flowers slightly, but kept smiling. At school, Emily had crafted a version of her life that fit in perfectly with her surroundings. She told her friends her father was a businessman who traveled often, vague enough to avoid questions, impressive enough to avoid judgment. She laughed along when others made jokes about janitors or working-class parents, though each laugh felt like a quiet betrayal. The truth was something she kept buried, locked away behind expensive uniforms and borrowed confidence. At home, things were different. The apartment was small but spotless, thanks to her father's constant effort. He cooked, cleaned, and still managed to ask her about her day with genuine interest, even when exhaustion was etched into every line on his face. That evening, he returned home a little later than usual, his clothes damp from the rain. In his hand was a small, carefully wrapped box. "I know you saw this bracelet in the shop window last month," he said softly, placing it on the table. "I picked up a few extra shifts. Happy birthday, sweetheart." Emily opened the box to find a delicate silver bracelet, slightly worn, clearly secondhand, but still beautiful. For a moment, her heart softened. But the weight of her secret, the fear of being exposed, quickly returned. "Thanks," she murmured without meeting his eyes, slipping the bracelet back into the box. She stood up and walked to her room, leaving Daniel sitting at the table alone, watching the door quietly close behind her. A few weeks later, the school announced a Parent Appreciation Day, a formal event where students were encouraged to invite their parents for a special ceremony. Emily felt a knot form in her stomach the moment she heard it. She dreaded the thought of her classmates seeing her father, dressed in his worn-out janitor's uniform, surrounded by parents in suits and designer clothes. That evening at home, she hesitated before speaking. "Dad, about the school event, it's not really a big deal. You don't have to come." Daniel looked at her, confused but gentle. "I'd love to be there, Emily. I've never missed anything important in your life." Emily forced a smile, then nodded slowly, her mind already racing with anxiety. The day arrived. The school auditorium buzzed with excitement and chatter. Parents lined the seats, doctors, lawyers, business owners, all dressed in their best. Emily scanned the crowd nervously, hoping her father hadn't shown up. But then she saw him. Standing quietly at the back of the room, wearing his work uniform, hands nervously clutching a crumpled cap, his eyes searched for her. A classmate nudged her and whispered, "Hey, isn't that the janitor? What's he doing here?" Emily froze. Her heart pounded. Everyone was looking. "No," she said quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know him." Across the room, Daniel heard it. His face remained calm, but his eyes dimmed. He gave a small nod, turned around, and quietly walked away, never saying a word. The weeks that followed felt heavier than usual. Emily noticed her father growing quieter, slower, more tired. But she was too caught up in school, friends, and keeping up her image to ask questions. Then one night, a call came from the restaurant where Daniel worked his evening job. He had collapsed during his shift, dehydration, exhaustion, and a body pushed far beyond its limits. Emily rushed to the hospital, heart racing with guilt and fear. When she arrived, she found him pale and unconscious, hooked to machines, his once strong hands now limp at his sides. The nurse handed her a folded piece of paper that had been in his shirt pocket. "He must have been carrying this for a while," she said. Emily opened the letter, her hands trembling. "Dear Emily. If you're reading this, I guess I wasn't strong enough anymore. I'm sorry if I ever made you feel ashamed of me. I know I'm not much, just a man who scrubs floors and washes dishes. But everything I ever did, every job I took, every hour I worked without sleep, it was all for you. You've always been my pride. I just wanted you to have the life I never could." Tears streamed down her face as the words hit her like a wave. For the first time, she saw not just her father, but the love, the sacrifice, and the quiet heroism behind his every action. And in that sterile hospital room, something inside her broke, and began to heal. Graduation day arrived, bright and full of promise. Students posed for pictures in their caps and gowns, proud parents cheering from the crowd. Emily stood backstage, holding her speech in trembling hands. Her heart pounded, not from fear of the audience, but from the truth she was finally ready to share. As she stepped up to the podium, the auditorium fell silent. She took a deep breath and began. "For years, I hid the truth about my father. I was ashamed, not of who he was, but of what others might think. I told lies. I pretended he was someone else. But today, I want to tell you who he really is. My dad is a janitor. He works 3 jobs. And he is the most selfless, hard-working, and loving man I've ever known." Gasps rippled through the room. Emily's voice cracked, but she continued. "He raised me alone after my mom passed away. He gave up everything, sleep, comfort, his health, so I could wear this cap and gown today. I used to think being proud meant fitting in. But now I know, real pride comes from truth, and love." A hush filled the space, then thunderous applause erupted. Outside, Daniel waited, sitting quietly on a bench with a small bouquet of fresh flowers. Emily ran to him, tears in her eyes, and threw her arms around him. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm proud to be your daughter." Daniel smiled through teary eyes. "And I've always been proud to be your father."